Shedeur Sanders will start the final 3 games of the season. That's not just a vote of confidence, it's a challenge. And the front office just raised the stakes by signing Jamari Thrash and demoting Jerry Jeudy. The message is clear. This is Sanders' audition, and the team is done making excuses about poor protection or inconsistent receivers. If he's going to be the guy, he has to show it now. Haslam's intervention ensures that the pieces around Sanders are handpicked to give him every chance, Thrash included. Jeudy's benching is the collateral damage of a franchise desperate to know what it has under center.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
With Sanders now positioned as the centerpiece, the Browns are moving aggressively to isolate variables. The offensive line still struggles, but the receivers no longer have that excuse. Thrash's introduction and Fannon's target dominance show that the staff believes in specific, reliable weapons. Sanders' performance in these final games will either confirm his place as the future of the franchise, or accelerate the search for someone else. The reshuffling around him is more than a lineup change. It's a strategic test with lasting. Jimmy Haslam is not waiting around. When the Cleveland Browns wide receiver core continued to underperform halfway through the season, he took matters into his own hands. The Browns owner directly intervened, forcing the late-season signing of wide receiver Jamari Thrash. And this wasn't a gentle roster adjustment, it was a clear and urgent message. The offense wasn't functioning. Shedeur Sanders needed help. And Jimmy was done watching Jerry Jeudy drop passes like it was part of the game plan. The decision immediately raised eyebrows across the league. Thrash wasn't just filling a gap, he was replacing someone. All signs pointed directly to Jeudy, who'd been struggling to keep his footing in this offense ever since Sanders took over under center. It wasn't just a performance slump. It was visible, tangible. Jeudy looked uncomfortable, like he hadn't built any chemistry with Sanders. And worse, he looked like he knew it. There were already whispers. Now it was undeniable. Jeudy had dropped key passes in multiple games, some of them wide open. Every failed connection between Sanders and Jeudy looked more and more like a red flag. And then came the tipping point. Jeudy, visibly frustrated on the sideline, reportedly jawing with Sanders after yet another failed drive. It wasn't hard to read between the lines. The quarterback didn't trust the receiver. And now the franchise didn't either. This isn't just a benching. This is a full-on repositioning of priorities. Because once your owner steps in to fix the wide receiver room mid-season, that's not a depth chart tweak. That's a demolition. Harold Fannin Jr. unintentionally added fuel to the fire. In a post-game interview, he casually mentioned that he was targeted 14 times in a single game. 14. Meanwhile, others, Jeudy included, barely saw the ball. That wasn't a coincidence. That was a statement from the coaching staff. They had picked their guy. And it wasn't Jerry Jeudy. You don't funnel that many targets to one receiver unless you've lost confidence in everyone else. The offensive play calling wasn't even trying to hide it. They were done experimenting. Fannin was reliable. The others? Not so much. Shedeur Sanders came into this season under a microscope. As a high-profile rookie, every snap, every throw, every decision has been under review. And to be fair, he's had flashes, some beautiful deep balls, confident pocket movement, but also a long list of missed throws and frustration with his receivers. His protection hasn't helped either. The offensive line's been patched together for weeks, and with every snap, Sanders has had to dodge pressure before looking downfield. But the chemistry just hasn't been there, especially with Jeudy. The number of catchable passes that fell incomplete bordered on absurd. There's a growing narrative that Jeudy, for whatever reason, just can't haul in a clean ball from Sanders. The Browns have been forced to ask themselves an uncomfortable question. Is the problem really with the quarterback? The front office doesn't seem to think so. Signing Jamari Thrash in December is not just about filling a roster hole. It's about supporting Sanders. The ownership is clearly invested in developing him. They're not swapping quarterbacks. They're swapping out the pieces around him. If the current receivers can't get the job done, then the receivers have to go. And that's the underlying truth here. The Browns aren't playing games anymore. Sanders is the guy. And if you're not helping him succeed, you're in trouble. For Jeudy, this is a worst-case scenario. His role is shrinking fast. And it's not just snaps, it's trust. When a quarterback starts looking away from you mid-play, when the offensive coordinator stops calling routes for you, when the owner is signing someone to potentially replace you, you're no longer WR1 material. You're a placeholder. The Browns coaching staff isn't pretending anymore. The target share has already told the story. Jeudy is no longer being schemed into this offense. He's being schemed out of it. And that's as close to a public benching as it gets. It's also clear that this isn't just a reaction to one or two bad games. The decline's been building. Even in preseason matchups, Sanders had stronger chemistry with other targets. The early signs were there. The front office watched. The coaching staff adjusted. And now the trigger's been pulled. Jamari Thrash isn't coming in to learn behind Jeudy. He's being handed the keys that used to belong to him. And that should terrify any underperforming wideout on this team. Sanders, to his credit, has kept it professional. He hasn't called out receivers by name. But his frustration has been hard to miss. In press conferences, he's hinted at needing more consistency and wanting guys who can make a play when it matters. That's not subtle. And the Browns clearly listened. It's not that Sanders is immune from criticism. He's had accuracy issues. He's held the ball too long. But the team believes his upside is worth investing in. He's going to be the starter for the final 3 games. They want to see what he can do, without having to compensate for receivers who can't win. That's why Jeudy's days as a featured piece in this offense might be numbered. It's not just the drops. It's the body language, the visible frustration, the lack of connection with his quarterback. It's starting to look like the team has already moved on, emotionally if not officially. And for a receiver who was once seen as a potential game changer, that's a brutal fall. Because when the team's looking at you and seeing a liability instead of an asset, it's only a matter of time before your snap count disappears. As the Browns enter the final stretch of the season, the message is clear. This is about Shedeur Sanders. His growth. His development. His evaluation. The team is placing him at the center of their offensive strategy, and if that means cutting ties with high-profile receivers who aren't performing, so be it. These last 3 games aren't just games, they're an audition. Not just for Sanders but for everyone around him. If you're not helping the QB, you're not going to be around long. Jamari Thrash is the new test case. And Jerry Jeudy? He might be the cautionary tale. So what do you think? Was the Thrash signing the wake-up call this receiver room needed? Or is Jeudy getting scapegoated for deeper issues in the offense? Drop your take in the comments, and hit like if you're watching this Browns chaos unfold in real time. Make sure to subscribe for more wild developments. We're just getting started. The Browns aren't hiding their intentions anymore. With Shedeur Sanders locked in as the starter for the final 3 games, the decision to clean house in the receiver room has gone from quiet frustration to public strategy. This isn't about fixing minor chemistry issues, it's a restructuring of the entire offensive identity. The Browns want to know what Sanders looks like with the right weapons. That means weeding out the wrong ones. In the game against the Vikings, the divide was clearer than ever. Sanders took hit after hit behind a shaky offensive line, but the real spotlight was on who he was throwing to. Fannin Jr. again dominated the targets. Jeudy? Practically invisible. Every time the ball wasn't headed in his direction, it felt like one more nail in the coffin. Thrash hadn't even suited up yet, and Jeudy was already being pushed out of the spotlight. What makes all this worse for Jeudy is that it's not just a benching, it's a slow, public erasure. He hasn't lashed out, but his silence has started to speak volumes. No cryptic tweets. No sideline blow-ups. Just a wide receiver watching his status slip away with each passing game. The former go-to guy is now just another body on the field, running routes that rarely matter. And when teammates start talking about guys stepping up, it's not hard to decode who's being left out. The locker room energy has shifted. Jeudy is no longer the center of anything. He's become a supporting actor in a show that's no longer written around him. Meanwhile, Sanders has kept grinding. Every practice, every rep, every film session is now centered on his growth. The Browns aren't asking him to just survive, they're asking him to evolve. And they're finally putting in the effort to surround him with people who won't sabotage that process. Thrash might be new, but he's already being treated like a potential long-term piece. He's getting reps with the first team, building timing with Sanders, and being slotted into actual game plans. That kind of acceleration doesn't happen unless a team is actively planning for your future, and planning around someone else's exit. Harold Fannin Jr. has been polite about it, but even he knows what's happening. In a recent interview, he acknowledged the shift without naming names. He talked about building trust with Sanders and earning targets by doing the work. That's subtle code for, I show up and some guys don't. He also noted that the offense has been simplified. Sanders isn't being asked to read through 5 progressions behind a collapsing pocket. The playbook is tilting toward quick reads, high-efficiency throws, and players who can actually catch under pressure. It's all being structured for Sanders to succeed, and for dead weight to be left behind. And yet, even as Sanders works through this turbulent season, he's not immune to fatigue. There have been moments, especially during blowout losses, where he's looked visibly dejected on the sideline. The weight of the franchise is already on his shoulders, and it's clear he's been asked to do too much with too little. When your top receivers are dropping passes and the O-line is collapsing, and the media is already debating your future 3 starts in, it's a brutal environment for development. That's why moves like Thrash's signing aren't just tactical. They're emotional. They send a message to Sanders: we've got your back. Across his appearances this season, there's been a clear pattern. Sanders isn't perfect, but his progress is real. Against top-tier defenses, he's shown poise. He's made throws under pressure. He's kept his composure when his own team let him down. But without reliable weapons, it's been like asking someone to play chess without half the pieces. The Browns know that if they want to evaluate Sanders fairly, they can't do it with a broken offense. That's what this late-season push is really about. It's not a playoff chase, it's an audition. Not for the team, for the quarterback. But that also means there's nowhere left for Jeudy to hide. Every dropped pass now feels like a final exam question, one he's failing. And when reporters ask coaches about the target distribution, the answers are getting colder. We're going with the guys who are producing. No fluff. No excuses. This isn't a slump. It's a phase-out. Jeudy isn't just underperforming, he's being overtaken. And the worst part? He sees it happening in real time. Every Fannin target, every Thrash rep, every Sanders rollout that doesn't even look his way, it's all writing him out of the offense one snap at a time. It's a hard fall from where this all started. Back in training camp, Jeudy was seen as one of Sanders' key weapons. The routes were crisp, the expectations high, the chemistry promising. But something broke along the way. Whether it was a misalignment in timing or a deeper disconnect, the bond just never formed on the field. Now, that broken link is being replaced. What once looked like a promising pairing is now a footnote. And the Browns are pivoting fast. Their timeline isn't next season. It's now. They want answers before this year. The game against the Titans made it painfully clear. Sanders held his own, despite a brutal pass rush and multiple drops from his receivers. Jeudy again was a non-factor. Meanwhile, Thrash got in early reps and was actively used in key passing downs. That kind of immediate usage isn't normal. Unless it's intentional. The Browns aren't giving Thrash warm-up time. They're testing him under fire. Because if he connects with Sanders even once for a big gain, that's one more reason to close the door on Jeudy for good. And based on how that game unfolded, that door is barely on the hinges anymore. Heading into the Packers game, it's all coming to a head. Sanders will start. Fannin will lead targets. Thrash is likely to see expanded reps. And Jeudy? He might not even crack the top 3 in routes run. That's how quickly things can shift when trust is lost and momentum builds elsewhere. What this all reveals is that the Browns are no longer pretending. The team's direction is now laser-focused on the quarterback. And they're going to throw every variable they can into the equation to see what sticks, with one massive condition. If you're not part of the solution, you're done. It's ruthless. But it's also what a team has to do when they're trying to rebuild around a rookie QB in real time. Jeudy may still have name recognition, but in this locker room, that doesn't count for much anymore. Not when every drop, every missed read, every sideline shrug is being measured against a future the team is already sprinting toward. The Browns didn't wait until the offseason to start making offseason moves. They brought that energy straight into the middle of December. In the matchup against the Raiders, Sanders was locked in. Short reads, decisive throws, and just enough mobility to keep the defense honest. But even more noticeable? Who he wasn't throwing to. Jerry Jeudy was barely present in the game plan. Sanders leaned heavily on Fannin Jr., got Thrash a few early touches, and otherwise kept the ball away from the guys who'd been causing him headaches all season. And when the camera cut to the sideline, Jeudy was pacing. No helmet. Just vibes. The writing wasn't just on the wall, it was flashing in. The images from that game said more than the box score. Jeudy standing by himself. Coaches huddled around Sanders, pointing at tablets, game planning without him. Every game since the Thrash signing has made it clearer. Jeudy is being edged out not because he's a bad player, but because he's not the player Shedeur Sanders needs. The Browns aren't interested in potential anymore. They're demanding execution. And Jeudy hasn't been able to deliver. This isn't personal. It's calculated. And for someone who used to be a central piece, that kind of sidelining cuts deep. Shedeur, meanwhile, has been unusually composed for a rookie. In his post-game presser, he acknowledged the adjustments, talked about finding rhythm and trusting the guys who put in the work. Not shade exactly, but not subtle either. Every quote sounded like it had a subtext. I'm only throwing to guys who can catch. He's not trying to stir controversy. But at the same time, he's not backing down from the reality either. He knows he needs support. And it looks like he's finally getting it, even if that means some veterans have to be left. Flashback to the preseason, and it's wild how fast things have flipped. Jeudy was supposed to be the safety net, the polished route runner, the consistent pair of hands. But even in those early reps, it was Fannin Jr. and others who clicked more naturally with Sanders. The truth is, chemistry isn't about resume. It's about trust under pressure. And from the first few snaps, that trust just never built between Sanders and Jeudy. Now that early warning sign has turned into a full-blown realignment of the offense. Fannin has talked more than once about earning every rep. It's not humble bragging, it's a quiet flex. He knows how many looks he's getting. He also knows it's no accident. Coaches are scheming around him not because he's flashy but because he shows up, makes the catch, moves the chains. That reliability is what the Browns are betting on. Because if Sanders is going to develop into a franchise quarterback, he can't waste downs waiting for his receivers to figure it out. He needs guys who already get it. Guys like Fannin. Guys like maybe Thrash. Against the Ravens, Sanders had one of his tougher outings. Baltimore brought the heat early and often, collapsing the pocket and daring him to beat them with quick reads. And while Sanders made a few solid throws, the disconnect with certain receivers was glaring. Jeudy had one of the lowest snap counts of his season. Meanwhile, Fannin and Thrash got nearly all of the wide-out targets. It wasn't just about production, it was about trust. And trust, once lost, doesn't come back easy. Not in this. From that game painted the same story, Jeudy on the sideline, helmet in hand, watching a game he used to dominate. There was no anger. No scene. Just resignation. The kind that comes when you realize the team is moving forward without you, and they're not even pretending otherwise. And while no one has said it officially, it's obvious. The Browns are testing life post-Jeudy. And so far it's not looking like they miss him. 49ers. Then came the 49ers game, a brutal matchup against the top-tier defense. Sanders got hit more times than anyone would like, but again, it wasn't his performance that drew attention. It was the game plan. Quick outs, designed rollouts, and carefully chosen targets. Jeudy? Absent again. Fannin led the charge. Thrash chipped in. And the passing offense looked competent. Not elite, but serviceable. And for a franchise that's trying to evaluate a young QB in real time, that's more valuable than a big name with no production. By the time the Dolphins game rolled around, the pattern had fully cemented itself. Sanders looked comfortable. Fannin ran crisp routes. Thrash found soft spots in the coverage. It wasn't explosive, but it was efficient. And most importantly, Jeudy wasn't part of it. His snap count was nearly non-existent. The box score didn't list a single target. That's not just a demotion. That's a silent benching. And in the NFL, silence usually means finality. The Browns aren't waiting for Jeudy to turn it around. They've already turned the page. And what's Jeudy saying through all of this? Almost nothing. No cryptic messages. No public frustration. Which in itself says a lot. He knows what this is. The league is about production. You don't produce, you don't play. And when the QB's development becomes the franchise's #1 priority, everyone else becomes expendable. Jeudy may still be on the roster. But in every way that matters, he's already out of the picture. The Browns have made their decision. They're building around Sanders. And if that means breaking ties with anyone who can't help him win, they're not hesitating. By the time the Browns faced the Bengals, the transformation was complete. This wasn't the same offense that started the season confused and overloaded. It was stripped down, simplified, focused entirely on Shedeur Sanders. Every decision, every route, every personnel shift revolved around whether or not it helped the rookie quarterback succeed. And for Jerry Jeudy, there was no hiding. Not from the snap counts. Not from the tape. Not from the fact that the offense had moved on without him. It was clear now, Shedeur was the system. And if you weren't compatible with it, you weren't part of the plan. Sanders was asked directly about the changes. His answer was measured but revealing. He thanked the staff for trusting the process, gave a nod to the receivers who stepped up, and said the team is headed in the right direction. Translation: the guys who are still in the game plan earned it. The ones who aren't? They didn't. There's no way to sugarcoat what that means for Jeudy. The moment your QB stops mentioning you, the countdown has started. And with Thrash already integrated, there's little reason for the Browns to rewind the clock. Jeudy eventually spoke to the media, but it felt like a goodbye more than a rebuttal. He talked about wanting to help the team however he can, praised Fannin and Thrash, and said, "Sometimes the role changes." It was the sound of a player who knows where he stands but is trying to stay professional on the way out. And in fairness, Jeudy isn't the villain here. He's a victim of bad timing and a poor fit. But when you're trying to develop a quarterback on a ticking clock, the room for error disappears. The Browns didn't just need wideouts. They needed ones who could adapt to Shedeur quickly. The most telling thing? You could see it in the team energy. Sanders was more confident. The offense felt less panicked. The wideouts were finishing plays. Even the sideline body language had shifted. Less frustration, more unity. Jeudy, meanwhile, was always just a step behind. Not causing drama, but clearly no longer a part of that new offensive identity. And now, with only a handful of games left, the Browns seem to have made peace with it. They've decided who they're evaluating and who they're not. And Jerry Jeudy didn't make the cut. In a way, it's poetic. Rewind to the preseason when Sanders was standing on the sidelines waiting for his shot, watching, learning, taking mental reps. Now it's Jeudy in that same spot. Except this time, it's not a developmental delay. It's a message. The team is moving on. The Browns aren't worried about names or reputations anymore. They've thrown their weight behind Sanders, and the rest of the roster is being judged on one criteria. Does this guy help the quarterback succeed? That's it. That's the entire bar now. And it should be. The final 3 games aren't about moral victories or hollow stats. They're about finding out if Shedeur Sanders can lead this team. Can he deliver when the play breaks down? Can he carry the offense when the run game stalls? Can he command the locker room when guys like Jeudy fade out of it? Because if he can, then the Browns have something real. Something to build on. But if not, then this entire reset, Jeudy's benching, Thrash's signing, the laser-focused target share, was all for nothing. So what do you think? Has the Browns' bet on Sanders already paid off? Is Jerry Jeudy's time in Cleveland already over? Or is there still a plot twist coming before the season ends? Let us know in the comments. And if you're watching this chaos unfold like the rest of us, hit that like button, share this with someone who still thinks Jeudy is WR1, and subscribe for more breakdowns, because you already know the drama's not over.